Hello ladies and gentlemen, Dave Dobbs here. It's the 11th of March 2022 and it's a very big time. There's a lot going on. As you've probably been seeing, that not only is the Icelandic volcano going off, it's just getting bigger and bigger, much bigger than the previous year, last year, when it started in around about September. We're also seeing Kilauea volcano filled to the very brim of its caldera now. So something's affecting this whole planet. Major volcanoes happening all around the globe, causing massive flooding. So that's how we're most experiencing it. Droughts nearly everywhere, and all the precipitation being dragged up by these particles coming up from these volcanoes. All the heat coming up from the oceans, condensing on these particles and dumping down in very small places. But when it dumps, worst storms down in China for ever recorded. Last year was worst storms for 1,000 years. The year before was the worst storm since 1930, since the discovery of Pluto. The year before, worst storm since 1998. It's getting exponential in size. Same thing's happening in Mexico, as this thing's now moving further into the northern hemisphere, and of course now with the Icelandic volcano going off, it means we're going to start seeing more volcanic activity. Same thing in Seoul, and you can imagine the same thing is going to start happening in Japan, because you've got major volcanoes happening in and around Japan, right on the Pacific Basin, right on the Ring of Fire. You know, it's going to be and there's the pictures of Kilauea. Kilauea completely full to the top. I won't play the video, but you'll see if you run the video, you'll see the height since it's gone from March to now, and it's just coming bigger and bigger at night. At night, it's an incredible spectacle. And then, of course, we've got, you know, as I discussed earlier, this line that we've seen here. This was on the 9th of August, so this is just gone. This line here, you know, on one side is the North American plate, on the other side is the Eurasian plate. This is the dividing line. Something massive is affecting this planet right now, causing these earthquakes, volcanoes, and causing these incredible droughts and these incredible floods. You know, everything I've told you is exactly what you're going to see. So we're getting the red dust, we're getting the red skies, lots of shots like this coming in. We're getting close to this object. So just remembering what's happening here. We have, see, we've got Chiron and Kerberos here and here, the twins. I call them the twins. We've got the twins coming out the other side. They came in around about the 2nd month, you know, February, March, and then they come out the other side, and in July, August. And their central point is kind of round about is June. Now, this model was built, you know, quite a bit of time ago, quite a few years ago, and this is all based on predictions of what this will look like. If I just come back to 2011. You'll see there's Kerberos and Chiron. That's why I call them, you know, Kerberos and Chiron, just because it's kind of like they're Pluto moons. And I'm of the mind that this is really Pluto, what we've been calling Pluto, or what we previously called Neptune, and what we previously called Uranus, and what Galileo first saw in 1613, when he said he could see it right there in all his moons with a 30 times telescope, and then he's put under house arrest, never allowed to speak to another member of public, and we're told Galileo was correct. Copernicus was correct. When Galileo was saying he could see it right there, just massive, with all its moons. And so if I play that forward, you can see, look at the cycle of Earth compared to the cycle of Kerberos and Chiron. Just keep your eyes on those, and you'll see how they travel 1 month slower every year. So it's always dropping back, equivalent of one of our months in its cycle. If like 1/12 of its cycle, it's dropping back every year until we come back to now, where we're all syncing up again. And so next year, because we had in 2010, it wasn't just 2000, it wasn't just Fukushima that went bang on the 11th of March 2011. Remember, it was also, in 2010, almost the same time. It was the 27th of February and 26th of February, ironically. 26th of February, the Icelandic volcano went bang, massive, super high eruption, like a Stromboli eruption, not like a pyroclastic flow where it's all flowing up the side. Super high eruption. And then the next day, so that's the northern hemisphere, the next day, southern hemisphere, earthquake in Chile, just like Carlos Ferrada's prediction, in the same fashion back in 1939. It's the most obvious place that an earthquake's going to occur, Chile, because they had an 8.8 on the 27th of February 2010. After the day after the kind of big volcano in Iceland, right in the north and right in the south. This came from north to south. Instead of, as you're seeing here, these objects running virtually parallel to our ecliptic plane, in that aspect, it was coming. This whole object was above us, and it was coming straight down, bam, bam, straight through. So, so that's where we are. That's where we are now, and if we kind of like, do you remember, I wasn't going to say that shot. I was going to say that shot back in June the 25th. Mr. MBB 333 put it up. And they just look totally out of place. Twins in the sky. Now, I call them twins, and that was because of, if this video will load, I think it's on this channel, maybe it's the one, it's that shot. That was what Brandon Corey Nagley put up on 17th of March. This is just the same time as the big earthquakes. We saw the twins going by. I told you were going to see them. They're going to be heading towards the sun. Well, from our perspective, they're obviously they're traversing because the sun's in front of us, and they look like they're going to pass us, but in actual fact, they're kind of catching up with us, but we're actually travelling faster than them realise. But if I come back to this point here, you'll see that, look at the Earth here, as these things swing round, you can imagine that if we're focusing on this object here, well, you can just see that as they're coming in along this way and we're coming round this way, we're kind of cutting across their path. If you like, we're more going this direction than this direction, which means that relative to these objects, we're traveling slower as we come round, even though I don't know if that makes sense, but then as we come over to here, they're actually traveling slower than us. Now, the timing of these is kind of right, but to accommodate this model, and to, I honestly, I didn't really know every part of this. I'm learning little bits more, but to accommodate this model, the bigger I make this circumference, obviously the faster they travel compared to Earth. The smaller I make it, even though the duration of the cycle might be the same. So you can understand that doesn't correlate with what I'm saying there, but that just simply means that we can understand a little bit more about the ratio of our orbit compared to this. All this is giving me is more feathers. It's giving us is more feathers in our bow reel. It's just revealing much more. That's why it's so important to build these models in advance so we can understand. But it's been traveling slower than us, so it's been dropping back. This specific object, Kerberos, I call Kerberos, has been dropping back slower into our night sky, further and further away. Actually, that's not strictly true. Yeah, sorry. What am I talking about? It has. And then it got to, and then as we came up to about June, we could see both of the objects in the day sky next to each other, like we've seen so many times. How many times have I shown you the pair over the years? Do you remember Becky Lewis's shot of the pair on the it was in March. I think it was around about the 28th of March. And I made a video before, and I said, you know, you're going to see one of these flybys. You know, you look out for it. It's really likely that you're going to see it, especially in the northern hemisphere. This was back in 2016, and Becky Lewis went out. I'm sure it was on the 28th of March, 26, 28, something about that. But it was she just came out, and she was the one who caught the first shot of the twin tail that I ever had on Boxing Day, 2000 and. Or was it New Year's Eve? No, I think it was Boxing Day. I think it was Boxing Day, but it could have been New Year's Eve. It could have been that. But I think it was the 25th, 24th, 25th, 26th sort of thing. She got one of the most amazing shots of the first shots that we had, which was exactly on the date of my prediction when I put my money on the table, and I'd calculated that we were seeing comets every 200 days, and it was just doing my head in to think that this was actually going on, and each one had a different name. And after we got all of those flybys and I put them all together, I finally decided I was going to put a prediction on the flyby. And of course my name was, you know, in England my name was Dirt, you know, I was a madman. And but in America it was cool, and people liked it, and they were also observing it, and it was people were much more open to much bigger ideas, which is why I'm wearing today my cowboy hat, because in England I'm a madman. And that's difficult. It's difficult because it's because we're all so deeply locked into our carbon dioxide story that we need to build nuclear power stations on fault lines and tsunami hotspots, or close to them. Like, you know, Chernobyl went bang on the day of a massive earthquake, 26th of April 1986. Fukushima went bang on a massive earthquake, 11th of March 2011. Both reactors went down because of the same problem, because the pumps failed. Now imagine if the pump turned into an induction welder because of that electromagnetic pulse. And what is this flyby going to actually do? We've just watched from here, well, from here to here. We've watched the caldera in Kilauea just getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. We had the crossing point of something here, and now we've had another crossing, so we've seen one of the twins. Are we going to see another big flyby? Something is making Kilauea fill up. Something is making this Icelandic volcano go into long duration. You remember the last time we had all these long duration volcanoes was during the Second World War. From the very beginning, Carlos Ferrada's big prediction in 1939 on the 20th of January that a massive earthquake would occur in Chile, because it was so obvious. You've got the Andes coming down, hitting up against the Pacific basin. So you've got a basalt floor substrate hitting up against what they call a subduction zone, where supposedly the floor of the oceans is going below the Andes. So you've got this obvious fault line, two different substrates. It's like etching a line in glass with a diamond. Where's it going to crack? You know, you've got an entire ocean acting down, a massive ocean that's moving around, acting down on a basalt floor, kind of like this. It's so obvious that the earthquakes were going to occur in Chile. It becomes all so simple when you really see it. And of course, that's when we had all our long duration volcanoes. That's when we had Vesuvius going off in 44, La Palma going off in 49. We had, you know, all the big ones were going off in that time. It was a massive, massive time. And what did it begin with? It began with a war. Because of why? Because of what? And so we're seeing this object, and we're seeing this now. That was also Brandon Corey Nagley. He's just posted that up on, I think that came up yesterday. And he's showing some of the red sky and some of these other sort of shots. And he's also showing what I'm imagining is, if this will load, it might be too slow because I'm recording. But you'll see we've just seen one go by. We saw it going by. We felt it going by. We've seen it coming, and we've seen all the shots of it, epic shots of it. And there it is. It's moved past us, and it's gone into the night sky. So we know we've got one of them out the way. And there's been just so many epic shots of it going by. I can't fathom inside of me what part of us cannot see this, and why we have to always go along with this narrative that we're in this energy crisis, that we need to kind of like get to carbon zero through, you know, Bill Gates's kind of like whole kind of V program, you know, and we need to go completely nuclear. We need to all go and buy new electric cars, even though we've got no abundant clean energy to fill them with. The whole thing, and of course, why are they really doing that? They're really doing that is because they've got a situation where when was that shot? That was the 10th as well. So I've put that one up. This was an interesting shot, by the way. This was August 6th. Big rainbow, and it's not raining. And he shows a few different ones of this shot. And people seeing this thing in non-raining rainbow. And of course, do you remember Mr. MBB33 also posted this shot on June the 18th? And we see this sun halo, except that it's off center. When have you seen a sun halo off center? You know, it's a very funny thing. And if I told you that this is a big blue planet and it is shrouded by something which makes it, you know, for me, it's most probably Ormus. I don't know if you've ever seen, he was an oil prospector. I can't remember his name. Maybe it was Peter, something like that, or I can't remember. I picked up on his book ages ago because he was prospecting, and when he prospects, he takes soil samples, and that's how he works out whether he's going to mine or buy the land and mine. And he did a soil sample, and he ended up with this white powder at the bottom of his spectrometer. And when he heated it up, this white powder that he'd extracted from the soil, it disappeared, and everything disappeared, and it went to zero. And so he went through the process of trying to prove what it was, but because, come on Shanti, no, come down, because it changed its atomic density when it was heated. In other words, not only did it disappear out of sight, it disappeared off the scales. And then when it cooled down, the white powder reappeared and the weight came back onto the scales. And so he was inspired by this compound, what this mixture, what this white powder was, and he discovered it was monoatomic gold. And imagine monoatomic gold suspended in your atmosphere. You know, could it potentially have a cloaking effect of what we're seeing? Because that's when I'm imagining, that's when I'm imagining that this thing was right in front of the sun, crossing, because our sun is moving forward. December the 21st is the front point of our sun. If you were to give it a bearing, that's the easiest way. I could start giving you kind of like the ideas of astrological bearings, but astrological bearings are very, very confusing. As if I say a date, the 21st of December, you get a much clearer direction. That's our sun moving forward. That's the direction our sun is moving on the ecliptic. And so any objects that have come into our sun that aren't doing a perturbation, and when I say a perturbation, what I'm talking about is see Europa, what I call Europa here coming in. So this is, we would call Pluto. Well, in this case, because really Pluto is an exoplanet. It doesn't orbit our sun. We've been told it orbits our sun, but none of these big blue planets that we've been seeing actually orbit our sun. I know that's tough to believe, but the mathematics of it are just too absolute to deny. And that's how I was able to build this model, because the patterns are absolutely perfect. No matter how far you go back, the patterns are absolutely perfect. That's how I discovered the big earthquakes that occurred in 262 in Asia, in Europe, and in Africa. That was the downfall of the Roman Empire. that was preceded by famines and plagues and decimated, as they had decimated for 1,000 years. As this cycle came through, they were decimated by this, and they had to change their whole mode of operandi. They had to move from being an absolutely aggressor that killed their way through, and they turned into a religion, a belief system, and they controlled humanity through belief systems. Just like we believe that we've got to build nuclear power stations on fault lines to stop the carbon dioxide spewing out of volcanoes. Remember when Stromboli goes bang on a big one, when you get a 7.5 mile eruption, that's 80 million tons of carbon dioxide going off in one single eruption. Imagine all the volcanoes going off at the moment, plus all that we're supposed to be sending out. And then you think, why is there only 0.04% carbon dioxide in the air? Why do we go on this crazy agenda? Because it's a business. It's all just carbon trading as a massive model to move money. And we're not just talking about billions, we're talking about trillions. Trillions. And it's all built on this carbon trading, and so much of what we're doing at the moment is built on these massive lies to drive this. And so when we see, going back to exoplanets and that sort of stuff, when we see a perturbation, let's come back to that a bit, sorry. When we see a perturbation, we're seeing the orbit coming round off what we're calling Pluto, as in assuming that Pluto doesn't actually orbit our sun, it's an exoplanet, it orbits something else beyond our sun. As it comes in, if it doesn't come round our sun, and it comes in and it comes around, it's a perturbation, it becomes a perturbation, as I'm understanding, of its orbit. But what happens if it comes clean round, like these objects here come in so much and they come clean round our planet? Well, that's kind of like, that throws it into a different type of orbit. It's not really orbiting our sun, but they've done flybys of our sun, because they've come so close they get drawn in by our sun and then shoot out the other side. And that's what I'm of a mind, that the big object, I mean, I'm still confused about what's going to happen, even though I've done the models. What in this model I call Hydra, which you can see coming in there, and it's done a loop. This is, what Galileo would have called Jupiter. 84 years later, you'd have Isaac Newton. And if you go to 1846, when you have Neptune, it was but I was going to say, between Neptune's discovery, 1846, and Pluto's discovery, 1930, you've got exactly 84 years. So you've got 84 years between the first dwarf planet and Isaac Newton, 1681, and you've got 84 years between Pluto and Neptune. Sorry, I had to think about that. And then you think, well, that's funny. So, and then you kind of think, once you're curious about that and you start seeing these patterns, because you can only see them when you build really big models, and you start just looking at, before you start coming right back, and you start realizing the bigger cycle that's really been going on, how our sun and whatever you want to call this big blue planet have been orbiting something, a central something, whether it's a black hole or Planet X. And we get the first flyby in kind of Galileo's time, then we get the next flyby in Isaac Newton's time, and then we're seeing flybys there at kind of like, Uranus, and then flybys and big volcanoes and that sort of stuff in kind of like a Neptune's time, and then the big crossing here from that began in 1859 with the Carrington event, where anyone in any electrical device, if they were too close to it, they got electrocuted. Everything just absorbed power. Electric motors became induction welders. There was just such a massive surge in electricity. as a result of the Flyby. And then we get Carlos Ferrada's big prediction, and then the war starts as we get really close as the big doorways to what this system really opens to humanity. And then we've had all those flybys since then. Every 12 years we get intense storms and intense everything else like that. And we've had this incredible intensity every 12 years. And then since 2011 we've just been, well, it started in obviously 2004. If I actually come over to that model and we look at one of the things that really helped me, which was, as I often talk about, I'm just trying to think of it. It's Jeff P's shot on the 14th of October. I don't know if I've got it in this one. I think this one is more showing you from 2004 just all the different flybys. I mean, that was the original flyby. That was Becky Lewis's shot in December 2015. And we were just, remember that? And I was just kind of like, I was showing how it had the same sideways tracking exactly, going in, going out, and at all the different flybys that we'd seen that enabled me to remember that massive one in the 23rd of October in 2013. It was just epic, filled up the kind of like the Australian sky. It was just a massive shot, amazing shot. We've just seen so many of them. I've just charted all of them as best I can. Not all of them possibly, but I've charted a lot. Matt Rogers' famous shot on the 15th of August 2016. And of course the most famous one that really put me on the map was not the last shot of it going by. That was obviously Dil Martin's last shot, and then he realised that people, when you put such epic shots on. But just after that, there was this shot that came in, and that's the one I predicted on the 20th of January 2017. And it was so massive. It came with an 8.8 earthquake in Papua New Guinea. And we just watch it coming by, and now we're coming back to another. Remember, I turned up into America for the big tour that Steve Olsen had put up for this object. Literally, I flew in as the flyby came in. Steve Olsen had put the conference, the Planet X conference, on the day of the flyby, and I flew into America the day that flew in. That flew over. Remember, the ESO said two neutron stars collided 230 million light years away, which had made the big electromagnetic burst happen on the 17th of August 2017. And people were just like, even when it's just blatantly in the sky, flying by, everyone's looking at it. We can't believe. You know, it's everyone just catching it. That was a Relentless Maverick shot. That was I can't quite see who was the video maker there. I'm afraid, because the actual quality of the resolution on this video was a bit low there. But haven't we seen? And of course, that was the big flyby that caused me all sorts of problems, because that was the one I couldn't predict, and that was from this model, the original model. The first Dobbs model. Well, that was the second Dobbs model in actual fact. You know, when I was trying to I just couldn't work out how to get around the problem of all these earthquakes and all these flybys happening in June and July. And you know, now we're understanding. We're just seeing the bigger picture. You know, we're able to build these models and put it all into place and see what's happening. I predicted that. Do you remember I made the video and I said, you cannot tell me you're not going to have oceanic anomalies? And the tsunami struck just after. That's a guy bareback riding the roof of his house in a liquefaction earthquake. In a liquefaction earthquake, being overtaken by his neighbouring hills and all the trees going faster than his house is going, or her house, whoever's got the camera, and they're riding their house into a coming tsunami. Just cannot make it up. You know, one of the last shots, getting near to some of the last shots that Steve Olsen ever put up, you know, that's when it really started. He really started realising that he wasn't going to touch the sides with this either, and he kind of fell out of it. Just couldn't believe that even with flybys like this, with all the kind of earthquakes and volcanoes that were happening, and just the epic shots of it. These are all the kind of like You know, I've worked on this model for so long with so many people that have helped me move forward with this. That was that shot of the twins. Another shot of the twins. We've got so many shots of the twins in the sky when they're up in the sky. Just amazing flybys. And coming back to this flyby here, this is the flyby that we've got to have come now. This is our next flyby. This was the shot that that Nick Thomas posted on the in July 2020. Just an epic shot. We're just imagining that can only be, well, it's difficult if it's the blue object. If it's Hydra travels faster every year. You know, this big blue object, in my opinion, is our second Earth. That's what it's really all about. This is where, you know, all those beings that channeled from my mum and dad, I'm of the mind that they're from the big blue planet. That's our second Earth. That's all of our best. You know, instead of having Earth astral realms, which are in part of the Earth realm, the fourth dimension, as I would call them, and many others would kind of see them in that kind of light. This object, this massive blue object that I've shown you so many shots of over the years, that looks just like a sun halo here, but that's exactly where I'd have it at this time. And we often see it very opaque, like you can look through it almost. We've had so many epic shots of that over the years. It's, you know, let me just come over to here. It's got all videos. I'm not going to open the video, but we'll just have a look at some of the thumbnails of some of the big blue objects. I mean, there's classic. There is a massive one from Steve Olsen somewhere. I mean, some of these, that was the shot I was talking about. That shot there was the shot I was looking for that was caught by Jeff P on the 14th of October 2016. That's when we saw it plasma bolting into the side of into the side of Mars. It was caught on a webcam, you know, late at night, exactly where Mars would have been, and this thing is just plasma charging into the side of it, this big stripe of planet. And so we get so many different shots of it. Over the years, we've just had epic shots of it. Steve Olsen has put up so many fantastic shots of it over the years. We just can't believe that. We just can't believe what we're seeing. But that was the object coming in. The last flyby that we've just had, the one that caused the recent earthquake, in my opinion, in Chile, was that one. That's coming in and going out. So which one's coming in and going out at the moment of the pair is difficult to say. But you remember how I talked about in this video about the crop circles, and how the crop circle that occurred in 2009 was the same as the symbol on the alien skull. This is that same, you know, the big object round the side you see there is what our sun and Pluto really orbit, and the bigger of these two is the Pluto system, with all its planets coming in at random angles, because it comes from above and it drops through the ecliptic plane. And really it's our sun that is dropping through. It's us that are on the it's our sun that is not on quite the same ecliptic plane as the Planet X system, and that's what's causing the Pluto planets to do this odd angular as they reach down or come up from their orbit, and they either come from, at the moment there it's still above, but it's gonna, as it comes around, it's gonna cut through. In reality, it's the Earth that is actually, if you like, coming up and cutting through the ecliptic plane of Planet X and this Pluto going round, or Eris, as Mike Brown has now renamed it, or Uranus or Neptune. Remember that beyond Mars is the asteroid belt before you get to Jupiter in our official kind of heliocentric model. And remember that every satellite that has left Earth and has gone to Jupiter and supposedly beyond has flown straight through the asteroid belt without any consequence whatsoever. Trillions of little and massive objects travelling at speeds probably about 200,000 miles an hour. All of our satellites that have gone out beyond Mars have sailed straight through that asteroid belt without any consequence whatsoever. And these big blue objects that we invent every 84 years, just to keep us in this little tiny model where you are not connected or part of a massive universe, kept in this little story, these belief systems. And, you know, where we've now taken carbon dioxide and made it as the baddie, and we've taken Earth and we've put it on the cross instead of Jesus, and the Earth is dying for your sins, and you have to do something really stupid. You have to go to war with your planet. You have to cover it with depleted uranium creators, as in nuclear power stations. Without these nuclear power stations, all our technology, all our best rockets that are melting tanks, which are filled with depleted uranium, all of these could not be if it wasn't for all these nuclear power stations. So our cutting edge, where we got rid of gold and we took gold, real value that we had on the table to drive our finances. Now we use war and aggression because there's no real value behind these currencies other than you have to use them or you will get annihilated. And all these countries now are coming up and becoming equal in strength. And so it becomes apparent that you cannot have war on this plane anymore without destroying this Earth, which means that we have to bring real value back to the currencies. And if we've got to bring real value back to the currencies and it becomes an equal global playing field, then we've got a massive problem, because through the US dollar and the pound we've controlled the sale of oil, and so we've controlled the amount of nitrates that we can produce and make with all this oil. And if we have an energy shortage, which we really shouldn't have because we have abundant energy all around us, but we're in a belief system that there's a lack of it, which is driving all these wars and it's driving all of this system, this whole model of commerce that is driving all of this, is at the core of it, is wrong. You know, trillions and trillions are turned over every day, and all of this is just speculation, which is driving more borrowing, more lending, more this whole kind of like, there's no real value. It's just all the value is being made by the movement of money. And so it's just turned, like our storms are sucking up all the moisture in the air and it's all just going into one place. That's what's happening with the money. The same thing what the volcanoes are doing, ironically, is happening with the money situation. It's out of control. It's just massive, raining huge amounts of money on very, very few people, and most are not getting that wealth. It's just being sucked up and it's out of control, and it makes it look as if this Earth is out of control to drive all of these markets and this movement and all the most profitable industries to keep all of this alive. It's exactly what I said would happen in Laughing Gas, that Europe, Britain would be the Trojan horse. to break up the European alliance so that Europe could be fed into a war against Russia, to drive the economy, to save the US dollar and the pound, and to not only save the US dollar but to implement a whole new currency where all fiat-based currencies would go down together, and the migration into a new system would have to occur, or there would be all-out global heck, nuclear heck. And so that's the situation we're in. That's where we're at. We're watching to see what the hell happens with this flyby, how big it's going to be, and what our governments are going to do about it. They're going to try and lower the vibration as much as possible and try and take us into a war, just like they did in 1939. That's what's happening. You can see it's all high tension now. But the fact that the Chinese have just halted all their drills, their live ammunition drills. Pelosi's kind of gone. That's all calmed down. It's just a warning to, it's making it very difficult for the Americans to start a war. The whole way in Britain and America and NATO wants to start a war is to try and get other countries to fight, because those at the helm of this really know that you cannot have war when this passage is going on. Cannot have war. That was the message I was given. I didn't even understand any of this. But when I wrote Laughing Gas, I was just told a message. You approach the wall and nothing of war gets past this wall. For all your depleted uranium, all your hate, all your nuclear bombs, you won't scratch the surface of it. It seems so much bigger, so much better. So what enemies try and do, or foes try and do, is they try and drive each other under the wall, under the wheels of their own real gods that they don't believe in anymore, because they're in other stories, other belief stories. And their entire economy, everything is built into these, that they are dependent on these so much they have to stand by these ludicrous stories. They have to stand by these ludicrous stories because their lives are built upon them. And that's what they've done with all of this. They've dragged us into this, and that will have to change now. That's all going to change now. So you're just in a big thing, and it's all going on. But as I said in Laughing Gas, unprecedented peace. That was the message I got when I presented and I saw the woes of that horrible vision of Britain having to fail in its endeavour to feed Europe into this war against Russia, and the famine that I saw that Britain had to experience, and the tsunami that finally killed me at the end of it. Everything I've done is to try and stop that. Everything I've done is to try and stop that. And it's such a massive story to charter this thing. And it's such a convoluted story. And it's so much evidence behind it. But we are so in these belief bubbles that we cannot be touched. That we've set ourselves up for whatever's happening to happen now. And all I can tell you is that there's a doorway that's open to all of us right now, and it's a rare doorway that opens up, and through peaceful conduct, all the souls that are living on this planet right now, incarnating on this planet, can migrate to a higher soul address. As in, it doesn't mean you wouldn't come to Earth anymore. And it doesn't mean that Earth isn't the place where you incarnate. It just means that when you arrive on Earth, you come from what I would call the fifth dimension. Some of you might call it heaven. Some of you might call it Shambhala or Shangri-La, or a realm that you've all worked together with all of your lives to build, a higher energetic realm. And that's what is flying by us now. Our second Earth comes really close. It docks with Earth. It's a massive transformation for this Earth. The twin tails that fly with it, they flank it. They protect it. It's just very, very protected. And there are rules on planet Earth when this thing is close proximity. You do not engage in war when this thing is flying by. And that which is trying to subvert humanity, it desperately trying to push humanity into war so it is annihilated by its gods, because it cannot get involved in this story. Humanity is too protected by higher gods. So this other process is happening right now. And humanity is ultimately in service to all of these different things. And that's how it's seen from beyond our planet. From outside, beyond our solar system, we are seen as a race that is in service. Whether it's to our egos or whether it's to our highest aspects, God or whatever, we are in service to it all. And all that's happening here is that humanity is being boiled down to its sweetest nectar. As it says in Laughing Gas, just because you are your own final destination doesn't mean it's not going to be a bumpy ride. We will all arrive back to being one human and one soul connected to the heart of the human state, and humanity will go back being driven by its true joystick of feeling, and that soul connection through the heart. There's going to be a termination of ego transmission. This electromagnetic blast will neutralize all of the earth astral realms. They will be, so in that sense the world is ending on an astral level, and they're gonna be rebuilt. This is normal. This is the recycle. But if you're lost into those earthly astral realms right now, there's going to be great panic inside of you. And though all, it's the earth astral realms, the fourth dimension, which have been massively attacked. That's where the greatest invasion has really occurred, in our astral realms, because those that have invaded us are terrified of this dimension, because it's a karmic realm. They get us to make the mistakes, but ultimately we create, and they live off our creations. They love creation that is building things but are not built in the fifth. They love anything that is built without love. Because anything built without love and without compassion and without feeling is only built in the fourth. It's not built in the fifth. Only the highest vibrational stuff that you create in happiness and joy is transferred to the fifth. Because that's all the highest aspect wants. It wants the best. It wants the happiest. As in these other realms that we build, these fourth dimensional earth astral realms, that have been invaded by our invaders, the invaders of Earth. They're panicking. And so it's kind of all up for grabs at the moment. It's panic time. And the most important thing you can do is be happy right now. You can watch it all going on. You can see every part of it going on there. And they're going to really try and mess things up, and you've just got to keep them together. And it's a big thing to see. It's a big thing to see, but this cycle, this is all normal. This is what happens when new souls are coming into the earth realm. Maybe not always like this, but this seems to be the way it's happening this time, and got to trust in that. So honey in the heart, 1,000 thank yous. Another big one. We're going to see what happens with this last flyby and how big it is and what happens. But I don't think it's past yet. I really don't. I think we're in it now, and it's not going to be like I don't think it's going to be like on the 26th of February 2010. I don't think it's going to. Maybe not in Iceland. This is much more about fissures. This is about fault lines, fissures. Unfortunately, it could be about tsunamis. And when you've got kind of like the division line between the kind of like the Eurasian plate and the North American plate being really obvious, and you're realising that La Palma sits right on the division plate between the African plate and the Eurasian plate. And then the previous year to that, 2019, I think it was, or 2020, we saw the big Congo volcano, and that's the division line between the kind of like the African plate and the I guess the Indian plate. I might be a little bit, might be incorrect there. It might not be the Indian plate. There might be another plate that I'm getting a bit confused with that comes down. But basically, that division point comes up and joins the, between the kind of what I'm assuming is the Indian plate and the African plate. Obviously, comes up and joins the plate divide between the Eurasian plate and the African plate on one side, the Indian plate on the other, and shoots straight out and hits comes via, Stromboli, Etna, and in my opinion, it's also La Palma. And then it's going out to the mid-Atlantic Rift, to the Azores. And when that's going off, lots of volcanoes, when that starts shaking, when the volcanoes start, and that's what you're going to be watching now, that's when you're going to start getting a really concern. If the Azores starts rumbling. Well, the last time we had a tsunami here was when, obviously, La Palma was last going bang. In Galileo's time, the last biggest eruption was the same time Galileo's time, and of course that's when we had the tsunami in 1606, and that's when the Azores were going bang. It's quite obvious how this thing all goes, how we can throw these complicated stories on it, that we've got to demonise carbon dioxide. Remember that you could leave water on a planet for millions of years, come back millions of years later, if there's no volcanoes, if there's no feed of carbon dioxide, you'll never have life on that planet. You'll never be able to you need 3 atoms in each molecule of water, carbonated water. 2 of those molecules can get either side of a calcium in bedrock and pull it out, produce calcium bicarbonate, take the kingpin of the rock out, and now you've got all that life can ever be released from that rock. All of the minerals, all of the elements that life can use are going to come out of that rock. And apart from obviously the water and the hydrogen, which is the whole process of, but the water and the hydrogen is becoming part of that process because it's those 6 atoms of oxygen in two molecules that is pulling out the bedrock, which is dissolving the bedrock. Without that, you would never have life on the planet. Carbon dioxide is sacred. Carbon dioxide belongs on your temple. Carbon dioxide, you put your hands together and you say grace and thank you. It is sucked up by the environment. It is essential for life. We've got it all backwards. Everything that science is pushing on you is all just to push business and commerce and drive the movement of money. We've lost our way, ladies and gentlemen. We've lost our way. We're in a story far-reaching from what's really happening. And it's just because of the process that many human beings are choosing to go through now in this massive transit. They've already decided long before these decisions they're making now. 99.999999% of them have decided this is all about solving this bigger problem completely. This is about bringing the invasion of the astral realm into the earth realm, where it becomes accountable. Anything that is in this earth, driving the human state by the heart of the matter, is the most powerful being, because they can manifest astrally in other spaces. They can create worlds, high vibrational worlds, to get here, but they are karmically accountable. And a lot of souls get stuck in the earth realm and have to go through the karmic process, and this is part of the evolution of a soul. You've all been through it. I've been through it. We've all been through it. The great learning space. Take what you will, but pay your karmic dues. Nothing is expected of you other than that which you want to take from this realm. When you're invited into this realm, you can do whatever you like, but you pay your karmic dues. This high realm is slightly different. You have to enter on a contract of peace. You have to state your peaceful intention to enter. And that is the contract on which you enter this realm. It is a consensual peace realm that you've all created with your many incarnations. So nothing to panic here, just beautiful breathing, grace, invite all the help of the gods. You're already so protected beyond your wildest dream. You've got to trust in that. You've got to trust in that. You've got to stay glamorous and beautiful through this somehow or other, and just and stay with the thing where, however you're coming into this story, whatever story you're throwing at this, or whether you're willing to throw all your stories away and realise that out of all the different historians that have looked at this down the course of history, from the time of the Romans, 262 when they discovered it, and then Galileo and this whole process of our discovery of it, and realising this whole thing has just been this big blue planet just slowly arriving since the 1600s, and finally going past us in this massive grand cycle. It's just been it's a 400-year transit. It's a 400-year transit. But it's complicated for us to understand a 400-year transit unless we start bringing exoplanets and opening our minds to binary and more complex orbital systems, like this model here, where you, like I say, where you kind of start seeing how, and this is just the beginning of understanding. I've got to update this model so much more now with all the sightings, all the understandings that we can bring into this model. When I built this in 2000 and around about November 2020, and it's taken me months, and it's taken me years to work this out. It's taken me years to work this out, how this cycle really works, how our sun goes around 6 times, and Pluto, whatever you want to call it, goes around 5 times over the period of exactly 1800 years. And of course, 1800 years is 3,600 years. So we kind of see these numbers that we've heard over and over, and we can finally make sense of them and see where we are, see our place in the universe, and understand where we're really going. That forward motion, all these objects moving forward, that would be December the 21st, going that way, coming out that way. If the Earth was right there, at the front of that system there, that would be December the 21st. All of these objects are moving forward, orbiting the Milky Way, all locked in an orbital relationship. This doesn't change its angle of intention as it goes round. It is constantly charging forward. All these 3 objects are constantly charging forward. They are all orbiting what I'm understanding is the Milky Way. Thanks, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for working with me. All the love in the world. Stay peaceful. You are more protected than you can ever believe through this time, and you know that you're safe. If it is your time and you're going up to a new space, remember, peace is the doorway that opens that to you. I come in peace. I'm of peace. I'm peaceful. Take care. All the love in the world.